Alrighty, hello everybody. It is now September 26th of 2024, and given that we are inching closer toward October of this year, which by the way, it's going to be a very interesting month for several reasons out there, specifically a lot of it having to do with Lucasfilm, and we have a lot to discuss when it comes to Kathleen Kennedy and the ongoing in-studio battles between the Walt Disney Company and Lucasfilm HQ. Let's get into this, shall we? This is Mike Zero. Subscribe if you're new and like this video to see future updates. You can also follow me at Mike01. I thank you also very much for the great and kind support. So we know one thing about Kathleen Kennedy is that she is growing very frustrated over at Lucasfilm after multiple failures one after the other. The biggest one of all, by the way, and I would definitely go as far to say that it's a bigger failure than The Last Jedi, is the Acolyte ratings disaster and how it got completely destroyed with the critics and how the story was just not there. There was really no meat to the story at all. And that's exactly why you don't focus on DEI over proper character development, proper storytelling, etc., etc. These are the types of consequences that you deal with when you actually deliver on DEI rather than what you should be doing is focusing on pure entertainment. Now, there's been a lot of things going on between both Bob Iger and Kathleen Kennedy and the ongoing issues between the two and how, not so shockingly, there is indeed a grudge going on between both Iger and Kennedy for multiple reasons. So let's dive into this and exactly what's been going on over at Lucasfilm HQ. Now, I'm sure that all of you are very well aware that Star Wars, as far as I'm concerned, is very much overly inflated. There are too many things in the pipeline, too many different projects all at once, and basically now Disney's taking action. Now, of course, on top of that, now with the Walt Disney Company already backing off on their funds for many of their divisions, one major development going on currently has more to do with Kathleen Kennedy and her growing issues at both Lucasfilm and the Disney Company in the aftermath of the Acolyte ratings disaster. One crucial update to this situation now involves how already a growing number of Disney board of directors have decided to take action against Kathleen Kennedy in some way, shape, or form that left Kennedy furious behind the scenes and enraged in multiple argumentative conversations with the Disney heads. Much of this has to do with around half of the board of directors siding with Bob Iger's call to cancel over, get this, 10 Star Wars TV shows and some Star Wars movies that were planned for Disney Plus and for theaters that were all going to be produced by Kathleen Kennedy. One project in particular, as an example, was going to focus on a live-action series that would actually take place during the events of the sequels that was going to expand the lore of the movies by both J.J. Abrams and Rian Johnson. Meanwhile, another series, as another example, was going to dive more into the High Republic era, years before the events of the Acolyte. In addition to this, they were also now pressuring Kathleen Kennedy to cancel the Rey Skywalker movie, and though it's not canceled just yet, it is indeed on hold. It is about to be canceled in the coming weeks as the pressure begins to heat up. This is all not to say that Bob Iger is breaking away from any kind of an agenda at Lucasfilm, but rather wants to experiment their ideology with new themes, new characters, and new destinations for their films and projects, instead, that were never done before in Star Wars. Bob Iger and the Disney executives are also putting immense pressure on Kennedy to not seek a contract renewal by this October at Lucasfilm. And though Kennedy's contract enables her to make that decision, the board, at least half of them, are trying to find a route to make her put in a position where it will no longer be up to her to make that call. Now, Disney reportedly can't afford any failures at Lucasfilm anymore, which is also why they are now being very careful with the stories that they put out. Even James Mangold's Star Wars movie called Jedi Prime and Taika Waititi's Star Wars film are now in complete jeopardy, and Kathleen is enraged over this decision by the Disney heads, also slashing their funds for whatever projects are coming next. So guys, before I move on, let me just say one thing about Kathleen Kennedy. She deserves everything that she's getting, and this is not me defending Disney by any means, but I think at the same exact time, you know, it really is somewhat of a step in the right direction. I still stand by my opinion that there's no way of fixing Star Wars at this point. The damage is done. It cannot be repaired, even if you go, let's say, 2, 3, 4 years of consistent good Star Wars movies and shows. It's going to take a very long time to really reverse all the damage that was done. We have to remember that movies like the sequels exist, Luke Skywalker dies at the end of The Last Jedi, and all of the lore changes that were applied to all of these projects are intact. Unless you're going to start from scratch, it's really not going to work as far as I see things. That's just me, though. Now, looking at Kathleen Kennedy here, you know, this is another thing. I think a lot of people may get the wrong idea that if Kathleen Kennedy is out, suddenly everything gets repaired, or suddenly everything is going to be all fine and dandy again, just like the George Lucas days. I don't think so. I mean, there's a lot of Kathleen Kennedy loyals at Lucasfilm that would just take her place and do the same thing over and over again. That's another point I wanted to put out there as well. But here's the kicker. Here's what's really interesting about this, is the fact that the Rey movie is now in shambles. I mean, we talked about this months ago. This was never going to happen, or at the very least, it would be put on hold. And here we are, it's on hold because they are putting so much pressure on Kennedy. Do not let this project happen. We cannot make this project happen anymore because of what happened with the Acolyte. They're realizing that more fans are beginning to wake up to the Disney nonsense. However, such as, of course, the Mandalorian and Grogu film, that is now, of course, receiving far less funds out of nowhere for principal photography. This all led to in-studio battles happening between both Iger and Kennedy for the time being, and the grudge between the two is only getting worse over time. To make matters worse for this entire situation at Lucasfilm is that Disney is also looking to throw in a brand new DEI manager, and those that lecture the creators on how DEI is used in a new specific way that will be reportedly more extreme. All these cancellations are simply Iger and the Disney execs losing full confidence in Kennedy as the president of Lucasfilm altogether. And you know what? They should lose confidence in her being the president of Lucasfilm, because look at what she's done for the past several years, alright? She took over the company back in 2012, and ever since then, it's been a downward disaster. I mean, sure, you had The Force Awakens that was a little bit of a promise in the early days. Sure, you had Rogue One, which may have been an exception to many out there, with some flaws, yes. But after that, everything was like failure after failure after failure, for the most part, I must say. So, again, I think that it's a good move that Disney is finally taking some kind of action against her, you know, giving her some kind of punishment, or doing something at least. At least they're not doubling down on this Rey movie, or doubling down on anything related to the High Republic era, or anything like that, because they know that they're in a scenario now where there's just way too many fans that are waking up to the garbage that's been spewing out by Lucasfilm, and specifically handpicked by the Walt Disney Company. So anyway, I would really love to hear what everyone has to say about this ongoing scenario between Kennedy, the Acolyte ratings disaster, and the domino effect that created, and why it led Kennedy to be where she is now, where she's in constant in-studio battles between herself, Bob Iger, the executives, and even the board of directors. And overall, let me know what you guys have to say about all this below in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel, and I will catch you guys later.